we're talking all the time in this industry that if in order to get into it, you have to be a little bit crazy. There has to be a little something off inside that says, I want to put all my life on hold and do something insane like this. Now, I think
crazy
you have to
people in entertainment.
You have to go next level to a film festival.
Right here, right? Like of the bat shit variety right here. So,
Bum, 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 bum. Hey,
that was very anticlimactic. Hello, Cam. Oh, hello, Cam. How are you today, my friend?
Hello. How are you? Nice
I'm
to
well.
see
How
you
are you
today.
Oh, great.
I'm doing great. I think
I see her.
something. Oh, jeez.
Well, is that an actual size of a reel? Why do you have a reel? A film?
What does this have to do with today's guest?
Please tell me you didn't 3D print.
Go!
That's a film. That's a film. A roll of film for a projector from an actual film festival, which I think is why we're excited to bring in today's guest. Is Lisa deSouza. She is not only just a talented writer and director, she's also a founder and executive director of SCIF. That's where we put it, SCIF. It's Santa Clarita National Film Festival. And we're going to have her on the show. We don't know when she gets here. Oh, there. Hello,
Welcome. Hey, how you doing?
Why do you have this? Dude, every time.
It's like peekaboo. I think he's like
Yes.
for 2-year-olds, so the object is permanent or something like that. You know?
Oh, there we go.
All right. We're going to add some sound effects after that.
We can do that live. So, ow.
Just save that.
Reminder, do not wear open-toed shoes in the studio.
Yes. You could actually end up with no toes.
Right.
And that's the show for today. Thanks for being here, Lisa. It was wonderful having you. And I swear, it's definitely never a dull moment. So, Lisa, tell me, you got your start. We could just briefly hit on your start, and then the film festival, which is coming up very, very soon. And I know you're excited to talk about that. So let's actually just talk about that first. A film festival. So as a writer, director, actor, why did you decide to make a film festival and in Santa Clarita of all places, which is pretty cool? It's supposed to be.
So that's why I'm not completely like, oh, let's just like throw a dart at a board and see what happens. How about here? Right? So there's actually a method to the madness, believe it or not. And that method to the madness was that I moved to Santa Clarita 6 years ago. It feels like 6 months. You know, and we talked a little bit right before off stage, right? I mean, New York transplant to Studio City up to Santa Clarita 6 years ago, like I said. And so for me, it was kind of like, okay, well, you know, I started getting, you know, my work out there, and I'm the only one. Where did everyone go?
Oh,
we're still here. We're just watching you live.
Where the guys go? Where the guys go? Don't leave me.
We're showcasing you full screen. Here we go. There we go.
Anyway, and I was you know, doing the festival circuit like all us independent directors do, right? And I was super interested. You know, Santa Clarita, right? For those who don't know, 3rd largest city in Los Angeles County. Fun fact.
And like 60% of everyone there's in film, right? Like
that in the industry. That's exactly it. Like the 60 to 70% of the people who live up here
70
work in the industry, right? We're called the Hollywood North, supposedly the most film shoots in Los Angeles County, right? Westworld up here, Mandalorian up here, like you know, Arrested Development up here, SWAT up here, you know, NCIS up here.
You always see the little yellow signs everywhere with an arrow and some random name that's not actually the film, but you're like, oh, another film set up here.
That's right. Exactly. So, you know, so 3rd largest, you know, Hollywood North, all the film shoots, you know, the most film permits, film shoots that happen in Los Angeles County happen up here. 18th fastest growing in the country. I just found that out. Kind of blew my mind. Yeah, ridiculous. And so I kind of was like, well, cool. I should be, you know, I want to be in the film festival where I live, right? Like, I mean, obviously this is a great place to do it. And I was kind of, you know, anyone who's heard the stories like Lisa, we've heard this a ton of times, but it's true. It's like I literally went online, I went looking, and I was like, are you kidding me? There was nothing. And so I was like, no, this, like, I must be mistaken. This has to be human error. I'm doing something wrong. So I went online. I literally went on to GoDaddy, right? And started putting in domains, and every version of that domain I could find, and it was all available. So I just bought it. And then I was kind of like, and I, day job in a previous life, have a tech background. So I was kind of like, okay, start connecting the dots, and I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'll do something small. And we'll just start and test the waters. And last year we had 1,300 people in COVID.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually kind of, we're not even technically year 2. I keep hearing people talking about year 3 already. Like I've already locked tentatively our guest speaker for our closing night next year.
Oh, wow.
I've got people who are like reaching out, for next year, talking about this panel, that panel. A year 2, I mean, I just finished programming everything. We have 175 films on site at the Lemley in Newhall. We have a virtual program that's running. We've got a music program, a comedy program that's running. We're doing a visual arts program as well, in conjunction with the Santa Clarita Arts Association. Next year, there's plans for a theater festival in addition to a food festival potentially. Like, I mean, this thing is just,
Yeah, that's awesome. You lit a fire where fires burn really easily.
But the thing is, it's just, I think there's a hunger for it. You know what I mean? Like on so many different levels. I mean, first of all, like you said, so many of us who live up here are like, what the heck? Why don't we have one? Right? Like, why is it not in this place that is, outside of like traditional Hollywood, right? Or like what we think of, right? Why is this space where this is not, all the shoots are happening? Like, why don't we have a festival, right? Like, why aren't we doing this? We have the space, right? Like, I mean, if you're thinking about long-term big vision, right? I mean, I love LA, but you can't do it in downtown LA, right? But in Santa Clarita, you've got
logistics.
Right.
Yeah.
Logistics, right? Parking, people, where, right? Santa Clarita, technically, I mean, again, long term, we're doing it in Newhall this year. You go walk up and down, downtown Newhall, very Park City like, right? Park your car, walk around, have some food, go watch a film, go listen to some music, like very kind of like cutesy, right? Americana that you can kind of just walk up and down on. Lots of little bars, breweries, things like that, right? So there's this great energy. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. These are ingredients that just either are or aren't, right? And so you got that part, but then you look at Santa Clarita as a whole, and you kind of look at the space that is Santa Clarita. And if you're talking about the scalability, right, of this model, where you are talking about a South by Southwest or that something of that magnitude, where are you going to do it in Los Angeles? You can't, right? And so, I mean, talking to people already about like the music festival and what it could be. And we have the Saugus Speedway that's just sitting there, right? And Santa Clarita, right? One of the reasons I moved up here, not counting during traffic, I can be down to Hollywood and Highlands in 35 minutes, right?
Yeah,
come and go, right? You don't have to go out to Indio and spend $4,000 on an Airbnb. You can just come up and go down, right? And here's the other thing too, right? It's like, to me as a New Yorker, right, it feels like Westchester County to me. I was talking to someone the other day, said, well, I don't have a car to get up there. I was like, hey, take the train. The stop's right across the street. Take the train, right? I mean, get off, walk across, downtown Newhall's right there. Oh, if we, if we build up the music festival to be on a Saugus Speedway, train station's right there. So again, ease of access, right? Those kind of things you can't, again, location. You can't make that stuff up. It just is or it isn't. So, I mean, I say all this to say, like, it's sometimes they're just like, look, I'm like, whoa, just the way it's blowing up, because I think that there's, again, when you take all those ingredients, right? There hasn't been an independent festival like this in a long time. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I am probably not getting into Sundance with my budgets. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a true independent, right?
Right.
I am not. I don't have that Hollywood budget to get in. Again, what we were talking about. Shout out to David Goodman for connecting us, right? But even that, like, sometimes my budgets are like, love you, but can't even afford that, right? Like, so it even depends, like what we're jiggering and what we're trying to like get done, right? With what we can do. That's that independent spirit and creativity that I think is, as artists and creators, we've kind of lost a little bit, right? So how cool to build something in that in Hollywood's backyard, 35 minutes away, that is scalable, that can be, I mean, it's right there. So when I see this momentum happening, and trust me, last year I was very much Sisyphus, right? Pushing the rock up the goddamn hill. But like, when I see this, and even sometimes I sit back and I'm like, whoa. Like,
and didn't it roll over him and kill him or something on the way?
It did, but the key is not to be in front
Let's
of the
hope
rock.
that part. Let's hope the rest of that
I keep
story.
telling myself, please don't be in front of the rock.
Oh, this time it's a film reel.
Oh my God, here we go again. Oh, goodness gracious.
I'm pushing the giant film reel up the hill.
I think that should be my little motto or my little
sissy
logo.
face.
Yeah, sissy face. That's it.
Sissy face is pushing the film reel up the hill. Wow. Yeah, so it takes. So we're talking all the time in this industry that if in order to get into it, you have to be a little bit crazy. There has to be a little something off inside that says, I want to put all my life on hold and do something insane like this. Now, I think
crazy
you have to
people in entertainment.
You have to go next level film festival.
Right here, right? Like of the bat shit variety right here.
So you have to be insanely creative.
Masochism, I don't know what it is. Right? Like it's like when I'm working right now till like midnight every night, and like we start work at 6 a.m. Right? It's like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? I don't know why. So,
and then after it's successful and people love it and it's amazing, then you go like, it was horrible, but I'm gonna do it again next year.
Exactly.
And you just feel there's a sense of fulfillment that comes from when you've actually got there and you pushed over that hump and you've made something happen that people enjoy, and you get to enjoy that response to it. And it's really exciting. I was looking at some of the winners from your last year's the last festival you had, and I really like the diversity in terms of just the storytelling. It seems really cool, and like none of like there's a thriller that wins one, and there's actually like it's a what was the first one? It's like a comedy, and I look at him like, wow, there's actually films I would probably want to watch here and would enjoy.
We actually had one that someone said they saw on HBO.
Really shortly after or before.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I'm not saying we were the reason. I mean, it was a stellar movie, but it was on HBO. And that was our year one, right? But I mean, like, I want to kind of touch on something that you brought up, Jason, just now, because what you just talked about with like the diversity and stuff like that, because one of the things I'm really, really, really proud of this year is that we, one of the things we say over and over again, besides like the next independent platform and the next, right, is allowing that creative voice to be heard, right? So one of the things we've, interestingly enough, Santa Clarita is also in a very interesting spot where it's also, it's changing, right? Like the actual demographic is changing, and that means gender, color, sexual orientation, the whole 9 yards, right? And so Santa Clarita is, kind of cookie cutter, like front lines, kind of America, what's happening in America right now, right? And so, and Skiff is, unbeknownst to me, unexpected to me, a part of that has kind of emerged from the center, which is art does that, right? Isn't that what art does, right? And so this year, kind of what we collectively talked about was not just giving a voice to our filmmakers and our musicians and our comedians and all of that, but we're giving our voice to our nonprofits to talk about social issues as well. So, for example, super proud that we've partnered up with the SCV LGBTQ Center, and we are showcasing a movie produced by Elton John called Hating Peter Tatchell, which is about he was like the English Harvey Milk, quite frankly, and not only that, but we are doing a Zoom call into the theater with everybody live, so we can actually ask him questions. And
that's cool.
The SCV LGBTQ panel will come up and talk about the work that they're still doing, on behalf of kind of their rights and the movement. We're doing something with the NAACP. We're doing something with a nonprofit called Stop the Void, which is about the fentanyl crisis. We're going to have people coming in about, from our school district, the sheriff's office is coming, to talk about kind of what's going on. So, what we're using now is a platform, not just only for actual storytelling, but the folks that sometimes these stories are told about, right? And I think that kind of, ability to talk about diversity through art and that voice to be heard, to be seen, is a big part of our mission and what we're really striving to do.
So what goes into a selection for you guys?
Oh, that's a great question. We literally sit down. I think we had something like 270 or 280 submissions this year.
Awesome. Versus what was the first year?
We were like at 205 or 206.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
And we have a screening committee that sits down, that goes through everything. We have different, weighting as well. Inclusion, again, one of the things that Hollywood does not do is we have a faith in film program, right? That tends to be something that's a little bit, pushed to the side. Not here, right? Everyone has a voice, everyone has a story. And so, again, depending on what bucket they fall in, there's a different weighting. We try to very much support Santa Clarita residents. We try to, support our local, meaning Los Angeles and expanded, right? We give that a little bit more weighting. And then sometimes, if people can't physically be here, right? Because obviously, hey, let's call a spade a spade. We have to, we rent theaters, right? Like we need to put butts in seats. We need to sell tickets. And so we also have a virtual program, like for folks who can't make it, who don't want to fly in. It's kind of like on almost like a site like this, where it'll be a recorded thing but except we actually lock it where you have to log in. But then we have live streams going on. We have a pop-up studio. We have, so we try to give people who can't be there a good feel for the energy, like feet on the street, kind of a thing, so that we can also kind of give that virtual, touch of the festival. So lots of spinning plates going on at the same time with a lot of energy. And like I said, that's just film. That's not counting the music and the comedy that's happening at the same time,
Yeah, I like that question. I'd even want to piggyback on it a little bit. Like, what do you think makes a film festival worthy? Like, what kinds of things do they say? If you think like, what is it the characters, the lighting, the story, is it cinematography? Like, what is it particularly that stands out? Like, what makes a good movie worth being in a film festival? Because maybe I got a film, maybe I could put this film in here. What are you guys looking for?
Yeah. For me, I'll tell you, and this is just my personal, right? Like, I think it starts with a story, right? Like, how many movies do we see these days where like there's no story? And I don't care how many great CGI effects you throw in there, how many how many comic book characters you throw in there. No disrespect to the comic book stuff in the back, my friend. I have nothing wrong with that. I know, no issues.
Okay.
And but if you don't have, look at the old stuff, right? Like even the old Star Wars or the old Star Trek, right? Like, when you didn't have all the special effects, what did you have to rely on? A script.
Yes, story. Yeah, that's actual script. We'll just make it in post.
A novel idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy idea, right?
That's a great note.
That is script.
A script. That's right. And
is that SKRIPT? Is that
yes. It's
ripped.
Yes.
Ripped.
Like
thank you.
Skiff, but just skiff, but with ripped.
That's right.
Instead of the if.
Script.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I'm going to try this.
Good answer.
We like. Good answer. Yeah, I actually walked out of a show recently. It was a big, action hero thing, and I just was like, I am so bored. Like, and the things in it were just so beyond implausible that I like to suspend belief when I watch something. I'm like, okay, I suspend belief a lot, but I'm just like, I looked around. I'm like, am I the only person that's feeling like I can't? Like, I even left for a little while and I got a sandwich at a store and I came back and nothing had happened. I was gone for like 25 minutes and I came back and I'm like, we are literally in the same place. I sat there another 10 minutes. I said, nope, done. Like you gotta, like it's gotta have substance.
Right,
There has to,
right.
you have to make me
And I
care about
try,
these
to your
characters.
point, right? Like we know what it takes, like to make something like this. Like we know.
Oh yeah,
So I
colossal.
I try to be really understanding of like that was someone's blood, sweat, and tears. That was a 14-hour day, right? Like that was 14 hours of footage for 14 minutes. Like I get that, right? But I agree. It's just like, it's like, God, man, you're making it so hard. I'm really trying to be with you. And I can't, you know, because if you don't have the story, right? Like if you just don't
Right.
have the story, how do you it's hard.
Well, and you know what? Something else that's very interesting is, and I think maybe in the past, I don't know if I would have walked out of a film. I have walked out of maybe 2 or 3 films in my entire life. One of them, I was just so nauseous. I'm like, I can't watch this. I'm gonna puke everywhere. It was like God Cloverfield. I was watching that. I'm like, I'm literally sick, and I'm like, I have to leave because I'm sick. And then there's some other film that I thought it was like so gory. I'm like, I'm not. I like a thriller. I like thrill me, but I was just like, it was too much. So, but this movie, I literally, I thought, well, I wonder why I walked out. And I think it's because like with you know, streaming services, Netflix, I don't like a movie, I'll give it a few minutes. I'll watch it for maybe 10 minutes. I'm like, next, skip.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I'm not going to invest myself. I'm not going to invest myself in it unless you've given me a reason to invest in it. And I think it was the same way. I'm just sitting there like, you know, I paid $15 for this dumb thing. And I'm like, nah, I'm done. I got other things to do.
$15. The least they can do is give you a remote.
Something, right?
Yeah, I should be able to skip. Where's the fast forward button on this?
Well,
Like there were some good scenes.
I think like movies now is like exactly what you just said. It's like, I mean, Netflix has Tinderized it, hasn't it? Right? Like, I mean, it's like,
really swipe right, swipe right,
swipe left, right? And then you sit there and you're like, I didn't find anything that I like. You know, it's just the same.
And I even wonder, like, what do I even like it? But like, what does it take to really grab me in a story? And I think every time it's original, it's a character that I'm interested in very quickly. So, like for example, I watched Andor on Disney. Like, I absolutely love that story.
Wonderful.
It was friggin' phenomenal. Like the way that they made the whole thing, the symbolism, the imagery. I was hooked instantly just from the atmosphere, and they took me in, and I forgot I'm watching. I was doing it. And it's interesting. Like I almost like Netflix was wonderful because they dumped the show on you and you can binge it. But then Disney's like, we're not going to do that. We're going to release it the old fashioned way. And at first I'm like, this is so obnoxious. But then at the same time, there was a phenomenon that happened around the story is we talked about it all week again. So episode 1, people are texting about it. They're Instagramming, you're having, lunch and you're talking, what about this? What do you think's going to, there's all kinds of theories and hypotheses that you're enjoying that experience again together. Around the story. And I was like, I actually like it. I don't want that for every story, but for those really powerful draw you in stories, it's fun. Like I like that experience. And I think maybe that's what was missing. I'm like, it's that enjoyment together of something, because in the past you had one big movie or 2 that would come out and everyone talked about it. It's like this, you lived together, you watched it, and then, but now it's like movie, show, movie, you know, so it's like, it's really got to be special to create that same energy around
that's
it.
What we've lost, right? Like, I mean, like we've lost, like I was watching Quentin Tarantino and Bill Maher the other day, and he actually said, he said, you know, what a movie does is community, right? Like what you're talking about, where you have in between the weeks the ability to bond with someone and talk about it and geek out on it and all that other stuff. It's about building a relationship between another human being.
Yep,
more
absolutely.
than anything in this pandemic we've lost, right? Like, and I mean the whole Tinder thing too. I mean, like, how is that connection with 2 human beings? Right? It just isn't. Yeah. Which is why I think also, you know, I'm going to do a shameless plug right now, but like, you know, Skiff for me, like that's actually on like the backside of my business card says connection, community, conversation, because that's literally, you know, like when we got forced into it, when we got forced into the pandemic, we were actually going to launch a year before we launched, but then that was actual lockdown, right? It wasn't like eased up restrictions. And I remember being pulled into this like LinkedIn article or whatever, where they're like, well, what do you think about virtual? And I was like, it's just not going to fly.
No, it'll be dead as soon as the thing's over. We'll actually rebel against it. Like,
that's right. I was like, you can't. Like, and trust me, I hate most people, and I like to be remote and away from most people. But there are things where you need You
community.
need that
Yeah.
energy, right?
Yep.
You need
Yep.
to be face to face. And a festival is one of those. You can't virtualize it. You can do a hybrid, right? You can test some boundaries. You can
Mhm.
maybe, like
Mhm.
we're trying to do, and we're still finding our way. You can give that, like I said, live stream or feed on the street or whatever. But it's still, there's an energy there. I mean, it's just like being on set, right? Like,
Yeah.
like when we're shooting, like there's a collaboration, there's a flow, you feel it, like everyone starts pulling together. Like when it's a great set, it's a great set. The next thing you know, you've got absolute magic, right? And if it's a shit set, it's a shit set, and you've got shit, right? Like everyone
Yep.
knows, like that's it. That's
And it's really hard to salvage that, even the set is bad. You know, I find this fascinating. You mentioned this. Even considering the dynamic of people, there's an energy or an aura. There's something around people that when you're by yourself, you have your own, and then when you get together with friends, there's something magical that
Different.
happens between
That's right.
changes. So if Kim and I are talking together and then we introduce you into the mix, it becomes a new entity. It's almost
Yeah.
like groups, what that
Whole new
vibe is, what
dynamic.
it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dynamic complete. And when you have that, a number of people enjoying and appreciating, either they're like, I don't like it or I like it, and that energy comes together. There's something exciting and dynamic and real and alive about it, as opposed to just that, like that, you know.
Yep.
And you
It's
don't
great
get
if you
that
wanna
at
sit-
home, but you get
No,
that
you
in a
don't.
theater, right? In a
Right.
theater full of
Right.
people, but you don't get that.
Yeah,
at
why
home.
do I still go to a theater? That's why. There's something
Right.
about it. Just when you're
As
there
nice
and
as the home
everyone's
setups are
cheering.
today.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, it was
Well, and I also
hilarious. I
think,
was
you know, like,
watching.
exactly what you said, that friction, right? Like, I don't like it, I disagree with you,
Mhm.
whatever. We're so scared in this country to even have that, right? Like, we're not
Yeah, it's
supposed to.
healthy.
And it's just like, why? Right? Where are we in this? Like, is that why we're locking ourselves in our house and just like, you know, swiping right and swiping because it's safe? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, what there is a vulnerability as a human being, right? That happens when you're on set. I'm exhausted after a 14-hour day, right? Like, but there has been this push pull. There has been friction. There has been, like, you know, whatever, right? But boom, something happens. It can be magical, or it can be disastrous, right?
Disaster, right?
It can, and it's the same kind of thing, right? Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like when we talk about, you know, I don't like this movie, I thought it was blah, 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 blah. You know what, great, let's have a discussion. Who
Yeah,
cares?
why? Yeah, why?
Right,
Why?
ask a question. The most powerful question you can ask someone is like, why? Right? Because you might get an amazing answer that you never thought about. But we are so in these silos right now, like, you know, and that we, you know, forget tribal. Like, you can't say things, right? Like, heaven forbid, and oh my God, you offended. No, let's push and pull a little bit, because God knows what you might find in that, right? Like, that's where the magic happens. And unfortunately, I feel like all of that stuff is so, like, getting lost, right? And it's almost like, let's go back to old school, right? Like, let's go back to old
Yeah,
school.
we all knew
I
it. I
think-
lived it. You
well,
did. You did.
Yeah, but I think even before the pandemic, years before the pandemic, I started noticing techniques in film and video that were developed over, you know, decades, and, you know, and they started disappearing. And I think it was that isolationist, you know, shots that I would have, you know, early in my career, shots I would have never even been done. I would have been, under my mentors, scolded for doing something like this, because it's been built over the decades as to what is the best thing for a person to see. It's not as jarring. It's not, and a lot of those techniques, like the one of the things I see all the time is a mix between direct address and side address, and it gets confusing. You know, there's no turning with the camera anymore, or no all side address, and it gets confused. It's like, are they talking to me or are they talking to someone else? And I feel like the isolation, even COVID, has even pushed a lot of that further, because people are rediscovering the old ways for themselves again, because they haven't been learning from the masters previous.
And I also think, like, so much of it is exactly, you know, part of what we were talking about, right? Like, which is like, when you look at the older stuff versus the newer stuff, right? So much of it is formulaic now. and it's cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, I can't say who, but like I remember a friend of mine telling me about a story that he had with, or a conversation he had with an executive over a, you know, comic book character movie, right? And he was literally like, how could you fuck that up? Like, how could you mess that up, right? And she was like, okay, so the media response is because we're trying to, increase the character's breadth so that we can bring in more people, blah, blah, blah. She goes, the reality is we took the script, a bunch of suits who were trying to justify their salaries, got into the whiteboard and had to show value. And the next thing you know, probably what was a really great script got, you know, torn apart because, well, this and that, and we need to put this formula, and we need to account for this trope, and we need to blah, blah, right? And then the next thing you know, you're not being true to the story.
Yeah.
Right. You're not being true and authentic to the story of it. And you know, coming back to script, right? Like it's if you tear that apart, if you can't start with that, where do you start from, right? And then there's so much formula now, right? It's about numbers. Yeah. What's the return on investment? What's the box office going to be? Who do we need to put in here? A list, B list, C list. Let's plug them in, like, you know, square peg, round hole, round. That's not necessarily artistic, right? And I'm not saying
it's reverse engineered. It's filmed by committee, really. Yeah.
Right.
And it's not like we need to go on the other side of the spectrum where, like, you know, I go down this artsy fartsy road and I talk to, like, you know, people who are like, well, the color green needs to be perfect and I'm going to spend $100,000. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, you know, I mean, so where's that middle ground where it's not just about dollars and cents and numbers and, you know, but the color green, right? Like where's the balance in all of that, where you can still put out great story, great artistic value, and it not necessarily be about like, what's my box office numbers going to be? And I think that's where that independent spirit comes. Like, I may be broke for the rest of my life. I don't know. Right. Like, I mean, but that's where that independent, I think, spirit comes from, because it's kind of like, I need to stay true to myself. I need to stay true to kind of, you know, the story. I need to stay true to the art, and, you know, and not let, you know, I'll just be completely, like, you know, blatantly honest, because that's what I do, right? Is like, I mean, I'm in the middle of it right now. Like, I had, you know, an EP who was like, I need someone else to sign off on your work. And I was like, nope, not happening. Right? I'm the director. I'm the co-producer. Not happening. Through a temper tantrum. You can either get on the bus or you can get off. But I'm going to deliver what I know how to deliver, because I stand by the quality and the authenticity of my work. And that's what you hired me for, brought me to the table for, and believed in. Now get out of my way, right? Like, but you can't do that when you're at that, when you're going up that, you know, because then it's a corporation.
Yeah. You're
it's
right.
a VP, a senior VP. Everyone's going out and playing golf. You know, you can't afford because heaven forbid I lose my bonus. I can't buy my Mercedes. All that fun stuff, right? Like, I mean, it's that stuff versus the truth of, like, let's just make something really, really good that takes people's breath away.
I can't believe we're already coming up to a half hour here, actually a little over a half hour. It's been such a great conversation. So for those of you who haven't already liked or subscribed, continue. Please like or subscribe and follow us now, please. Dudes. Yes, I'm not begging, Cam. We don't beg.
Okay, like now.
Mother girl, you better fucking like it now. That's right. Like or subscribe. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us on this first of your part 2 episodes of Entertainment Dudes and sharing your passion and story for for Skiff.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yes, and so next week we're going to talk about some really deeper things about, I guess, communication and story and connectivity and why film festivals are important and why good storytelling is important. And you're not going to want to miss that on the next episode of
Entertainment Dudes.
And Dudette.
And a dudette, too.
And a
I think they can still hear us, even though this...
No, they can't hear us.
Full screen thing is. Yes, they can.
No, I'm confident they can't hear
because they can hear us. You know what they should be doing?
Liking and subscribing, hopefully.
Well, that, and they should be clicking other videos that are on the screen right now.
There's some out there.